Let's go ahead and bring in Steiner Sports CEO, Brandon Steiner.
One of the country's top memorabilia moguls.
I have an unbelievable guest, Brandon Steiner.
Brandon's second to none.
We're back. Oh, if you're a baseball fan, stay right where you are because we're going to dig down deep. I mean, we're going to talk Red Sox, Yankees. We're going to talk Astroball with Ben Reiter, a book that really explains about the new way and the new wave of how you win in Major League Baseball, which to me seems incredibly complicated. By the way, we're giving away a great article that he wrote today about J.D. Martinez. So if you're a J.D. Martinez fan, which you probably are, most of your front runners, I'm pretty sure, you can win a signed ball from J.D. Martinez, one of our guys. We're not giving away any Astros balls. They got enough balls, those guys. Just what an amazing run. Anyway, Ben, thanks for joining us. I was excited to get you in just because, I don't know, I've been watching a lot of baseball lately, and it just seems really complicated to win. Explain to me why you wrote this book, Astroball, who this book is for, and for all you fans out there that want to know the secret to winning, they'll have a better idea maybe if their team's on the right track.
Yeah, well, I think the book is certainly for Astros fans. That goes without question as far as diving deeper inside how they lifted themselves from laughingstock to champion than has been written to this point. But it's really for any fan of any sports team when they want to see how the most modern of sports organizations operates and become successful. It really started, of course, back in 2014 when the Astros were not successful at all. They were the worst baseball team
Horrible.
in 50 years. We all remember that.
We're all wondering if they were in the National League, the American League. I couldn't tell like what league they were in, and I didn't care.
And nobody cared in Houston as well, right? Their
Yeah.
TV ratings were like 0.0. People were calling them the Disastros, the worst team in half a century since the expansion Mets, actually, but less lovable probably than those teams. What I did is for Sports Illustrated is I went down to Houston to try to figure out exactly what was going on down there.
When did you go down, and how long were you down there for?
It was during the draft of 2014.
Really?
I'd been negotiating with them for a while to try to get some unusual access to kind of try to figure out what is the big idea here. Is there even a big idea here? Do you guys have any idea what you're doing? Is this just a disaster that's going to continue year after year? So finally, they let me sit in on one of their pre-draft meetings in which they were discussing who they were going to take number one overall. I was sitting here, like Nolan Ryan was sitting next to me. Craig Biggio was over here. Jeff Luna was over here. Their data department was over here. And I spent several days with them there, including the day of the draft.
Surprised you a meeting like that? Was it complicated? Was it argumentative?
What surprised me was that it was not argumentative, right? I mean, this was an organization that had a very clear idea of the path ahead and a very clear idea of the decision-making process. And yes, a lot of it had to do with analytics, right? Like in the post-Moneyball era, if you don't have a very sophisticated analytics department, which not every team did until even like a couple years ago, now they do, you can't compete. But the Astros stroke of genius was that they realized the way to get ahead was to go back to an old source of information. Humans, like human gut, scouting, human experience, and revalue that, but find a way to systematically incorporate it with their analytics to get the best out of man and machine.
So a combination.
But to do it systematically.
Did the young ones have trouble with that because you actually had to think and feel something and go with your gut? Because sometimes they struggle unless it's an app they can just click onto.
No, I don't think so. I mean, look, I think that they realized that everybody in that organization at that time was there for a reason because they had bought into this method, and they realized that, look, it was a way ahead. Of course, losing in the near term was also a way ahead because they didn't want to spend any resources on a team that was going to lose anyway. They didn't care if they were going to spend, if they're going to spend $20 million to make a 107 loss team in 2013 into a 102 loss team. Like, they felt that nobody cared.
Nobody cared.
What people cares about is what's happening in 2017.
What was your big takeaway from those meetings? When you walked away, you were excited, felt like, wow, those guys are on something?
Yeah.
Or?
I mean, I didn't go in thinking it was going to be an SI cover story. And of course, it turned into one with that famous cover in which we predicted they would win the 2017 World Series, which somehow happened.
Made your mother proud.
It did. Probably led to this book to a large degree. But I didn't go in there thinking I was going to write a cover story. I didn't go in there even thinking I was going to write an article that was optimistic. Just went in with an open mind. spend some time, see what they were doing. And I came away like genuinely believing it. A lot of people accused us at Sports Illustrated of just trying to stir up some controversy, like.
Not that you guys would ever do that.
Well, look, any good magazine cover is like provocative, right? That's the whole point. But this one had a 5,000-word story that I worked on and wrote behind it, explaining why this prediction was logical. And
That's fair.
It worked out pretty well.
It did. It worked out right on the
For
money,
everybody.
but you did the work. And you grinded it out on something that I'm not going down to Houston to check out a 100+ team loss. I mean, that would be like watching paint dry to me.
Yeah.
Though sitting next to Nolan Ryan was pretty cool. Did you find him? Because we don't really. I mean, I've sat down. I've got to know Nolan a little bit. But did you find him as a smart business person, not just a former typical?
Yeah. Well, in this context, he was really weighing in on the players, the 6 players actually they were thinking about picking number 1, and he had seen a couple of them in particular. So he was offering like what his observations, and they listened to them, right? It wasn't just like, oh, well, we're going to let them say their piece and then we're just going to go with the numbers anyway. They realized that someone like Nolan Ryan can pick up qualities in players that the numbers can't describe. Still, the numbers are imperfect.
That.
And if you're rejecting somebody with the experience that Nolan Ryan has and saying he doesn't know what he's talking about, you are missing out on information that could give you the edge.
So the game changer in those conversations, they ended up picking who do you think was the surprise pick there that they probably nobody saw coming?
Well, I mean, the big surprise pick. Well, remember, Brandon, they only had 3 number 1 picks in a row. They only really hit on one of them. They hit on it big, Carlos Correa in 2012, which was a shocker. Then they picked Mark Appel over Chris Bryant. They want to have that one back. And then they picked Brady Aiken, right, who they didn't end up signing because they detected a problem with his medicals. Now, that one actually ended up working out because they got a compensation pick. They ended up getting Alex Bregman the next year. So that's fine. They'll take that. But their system was kind of not designed to be perfect. Yeah. It was designed to increase their hit rates over that of the competition.
People think like winning it's an all-nothing proposition. No. You win 51, you lose 49, you're a winner.
Right.
And I think people lose sight of that. It's certainly better than being 49 and 51 or 40 and 60.
Yeah.
And I think that there's this whole drama thing, and you hear Jeter talk about it, that if he doesn't win it all, it's a lose. But it's not really true.
No.
Winning more than you lose is winning.
Right. And that's
what they were thinking?
That's how they viewed their decision-making process. Like they wanted a disciplined decision-making plan that would lead to more wins than losses and that's essentially what happened. Like they messed up in other ways too, like I wrote about it today. Probably their biggest mistake was they cut a guy at the end of spring training 2014 who is now, as he has been for the last 4+ years, like easily one of the best 5 hitters in the league.
But they weren't the only ones. A lot of people screwed up on that one.
They did.
I mean, how does a guy like JD Martinez slip through so many cracks?
Because he changed.
Oh, okay.
Because he was not.
Can players change like that quick?
They can. Look, I mean, I write about it. SI.com. You can find adaptation actually from Astroball, kind of updated with what's going on with the Red Sox now. But what he did is he realized that he was not going to last in the big leagues, hitting like he did for his first few seasons. He had like a terrible swing. The fact that he was able to stay in the big leagues with a swing like that was a miracle, and kind of suggested that maybe this guy had an extreme amount of talent to even be able to get by on some level with that swing. But what he did was a very hard thing to do for an achiever like any major league player, right? He completely retooled his swing. He went out to these swing gurus in California. He even went down to the Venezuela Winter League to like try to fix this thing. Came back to spring training, sat down with Jeff Luhnow and the manager Bo Porter. He said, guys, like I went down to Venezuela, I'm trying this new swing. Like it's feeling really good. Like it's really working for me. Just give me a shot this spring. Give me at bats. Let me show you what I can do. Because he kind of had a sense that he was on thin ice at 27, having not produced very much.
Well, I could
they
see
said
that.
They said they'd give him a shot, and they didn't. They gave him 18 at bats all spring long, and then they cut him. They wanted to see younger players: L.J. Hose, Robbie Grossman, Mark Krause, people like that who we don't really know who they are anymore for the most part. But they cut him at the end of spring training. A couple days later, he comes back as a member of the Tigers in a minor league game, hits 3 home runs against the Astros, hits a 4th ball that hits the top of the fence, And like Jeff Luno's sitting in the stands, like his face kind of goes pale. He's like, what did we do? And what they did was they cut a guy who's exactly what he had told them he had become, which was like a much different hitter, but they hadn't given him a chance. So,
oh, my God. You know, I always talk about, you know, when you knock on the door of success, don't be surprised if hard work answers. And, like, that's what the guy did. He went and worked it. You go and find the people that are the gurus that can help you, and you go do the work.
Yeah.
Because a lot of players don't want to go to Central America or they don't want to play winter ball. They don't want to ask for help.
yeah, no, I mean, he really did it. You know, Venezuela League is not comfortable, especially when you've been in the big leagues for like 3 years, as he was at that point. Hotel didn't have hot water. You know, he's living in Caracas, which is about to become the most violent city in the world. They always took a different route to the stadium
that, man.
when he was on the bus to prevent off hijackers. Like their bus was surrounded by guys riding motorcycles with semi-automatic weapons to like fend off hijackers. Like this is not where most professional athletes would want to spend a winter. You know, this is not like St. Bart's or Cabo or something. But that's what he did, and
The guy had balls.
he saved his career.
He really did.
And it came from his internal drive. And now with the Red Sox, I mean, it's not just himself hitting home runs.
Yeah.
Like he is rubbing off on that team. You know, he works with Mookie Betts. Like obviously what Mookie Betts is doing, give most of the credit to Mookie himself. But he is like a third hitting coach on that team, teaching the swing to Mookie Betts.
Well, he's
teaching
showing,
the
hey,
swing.
I did this. I changed. You may want to try this. Try
Right.
that. A little bit. Alex was a little like that too, by the way. When
Yeah.
he was in Seattle, always working with the other.
He was,
hitters.
yeah, I've heard from a lot of people that
Yeah.
Alex Rodriguez did that too, but that's what JD Martinez does. And there's a reason, you know, Xander Bogaerts didn't hit for a lot of power last year, lifting the ball now. Mookie Betts on pace for, I think, 38 home runs or 37 home runs right now.
First of all, just are the Red Sox? Are they just a runaway freight train at this point, and nobody's going to stop them, or could this kind of level off and we got some really good playoffs?
I think we're going to have some great playoffs. I mean, yeah, the regular season, I think they're on track right now for the fourth most wins in history and certainly have a shot at beating the Mariners' record.
Can you see them doing a little bit 1998 Yankees? Can you see that happening?
It's possible, but the problem is that, you know, I view the Astros as like another super team. As good as the Astros were last year, and we saw it, like they're better this
they're a little
year.
better,
They're much
yeah.
better this year too, as the Red Sox are, as the Yankees are, although they've run through a rough patch recently. But when you get in the short, pressure-packed October series, as you know, Brandon, like baseball is not really meant to be decided, even in a 7-game series. It's a long-term sport, so anything can happen. And I actually think when you condense the games like that, the Astros like pitching staff really is going to come into play because they have that 1 through 5 rotation. When you start throwing, you know, I don't know,
Especially
Dallas
that one.
Keuchel out of the
Especially that one.
and that new
He
2.
thrives for that.
They didn't have their 2 at
Yeah.
this time last year
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
Garrett Cole, so they've added on top of a World Series rotation like a number 1 and a number 1A starter.
So do you like the playoffs? Do you think the Yankees can rebound? I mean,
Yeah,
maybe the
sure.
Yankees. I mean, when you look at it, and I'm a big Cashman fan, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
the Yankees have been built now, or at least tightened up for the playoffs. They're built to be able to get in the playoffs, assuming they couldn't find that third starter. Now they've got this, you know, this packed up bullpen to come in the 5th inning and save
Right.
the day, more or less.
Yeah, you shorten games from the back. You know,
Yeah.
there's 2 ways. You get a starter, which this market was not offering, especially because the Mets didn't seem to be inclined to trade any of theirs.
Nah. If the Yankees were on fire, the Mets wouldn't come over there and throw a glass of water on them. I mean, there's no love lost there. You know something? I don't blame the Mets. I mean, look at what's going on over there. I mean, they can't be feeling too good about themselves. Their self-esteem is so low. I mean, I worry about them going right into the water over there and flushing.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing could just sink down. So trying to go help the Yankees more, I get it.
Well,
I mean,
but still,
that
Brandon,
way, the Met fans would kill them if they'd helped the Yankees.
fine, but
Gotta
it's all
help
about
yourself.
value. Like a lesson of Astroball is it's all about value, right? I mean, it's not helping the Yankees. So you trade the Yankees Jacob deGrom. What if you get like their top 4 prospects?
What if you got Andujar? What if you got
More than
Chance
Andujar.
Adams or
Yeah, you know, like at some point there's a price, and you can factor in your valuating, in your valuation of this. You can factor in the fact that it is the Yankees, and there's a PR cost and a emotional cost.
they probably would have.
But they're one of the teams that would have traded for him,
Yeah.
and also has the minor league system to do it. So I don't know. I don't buy this idea that the Mets can never make a big move with the Yankees. Like
I buy it.
They should. Well, I think that they should if the deal is right. I don't think you can. I don't think you can blackball that possibility.
I think they blackball the possibility. I just think there's no bridge between those two teams, in my opinion, on any level. Just about anything. Not just my opinion. I don't speak for the Yankees. Maybe they have a great relationship since, I don't know, but from my view and what I've seen, having done some stuff with the Mets and Yankees, I just don't see those two organizations working too closely. Tell me, you mentioned this is a little bit of a business book too.
Yeah.
Elaborate a little bit on that, because we have a lot of people that are always watching, and they're familiar with analytics. We always say you can't manage what you can't measure. But they're always trying to find the edge. We have a lot of younger people that are entrepreneurs trying to figure out what's the next level in business. How does this book relate to business?
Well, it really is an inside real story of how a modern business, a modern organization, properly uses all the tools at our disposal right now to lift itself from a severe lack of success to the top of the heap. I mean, that's really what it is. Yes, it is very inside the clubhouse, very inside the front office. You're going to learn about the people who did this, but the concepts are broader and apply way further. You know, I think in business, as in sports, in the recent or past decade and a half, the pendulum swung very far towards the analytics. Like, if you have the numbers, you don't need anything else. The numbers will guide you forward. You can almost run your business by computer. The Astros realize that's not how it works. You know, everybody has numbers. Everybody can parse the numbers. It comes down to you have to value your experience. You have to value your gut. You have to value, your business acumen. And at the end of the day, most of all, a human has to remain in charge. Like, a computer can't be in charge. The human uses the data and the analytics as a tool, but has to realize that they're fallible and that there's all sorts of aspects of success that the data can't capture right now, doesn't capture, and maybe won't ever capture, at least if you want to get an advantage.
Because there is no app for creativity or a certain gut feeling or some experience that you've seen. There really is no app for that. What's the next team? What's the next Astros in your mind, from your view, knowing what you know?
Well, there's a lot of teams trying to do it, right? I mean,
who's got the best shot?
I think, and this is not out of left field, I've kind of looked pretty deeply into this, it's the Padres are really following the Astros model closest. If you look at this minor league system they've accrued, it's crazy. It's the best minor league system in the game. The type of minor league system that you need, whereby you don't need all of these players to actually work out, because prospects never will all hit, but you have enough you have enough rolls of the dice that you're going to hit on a lot of them. There's a few differences, right? I mean, the Astros would never have done what the Padres did this offseason and sign a guy like Eric Hosmer at this point in their rebuilding process to the contract that he got, $140 million, I think, right?
Why do you think they did it?
I think they did it in part because they are recognizing the human side of this as well. I think they recognize, kind of like the Cubs recognized by signing John Lester like a year before they're actually going to be good.
It's a hell of a sign.
They need a centerpiece in that clubhouse, right? For all these young guys who are coming in to look to be led by example. Yeah. The Astros realized this a bit late, as I write in this book. They realized it in time, obviously last year, but that was a big reason why they signed Carlos Beltran before last season. It's one of my favorite chapters in the book.
He's amazing.
It's chapter 8.
I don't know if we've really gotten the full feel for Carlos Beltran in New York, because he took such a bad rap with the Mets.
Yeah.
Kind of came in, not really a perfect fit with the Yankees at that time. We should have got him the first time. Instead, I think we went and got Nick Swisher, or we were trying to get rid of Nick Swisher. We couldn't get rid of him. Mm-hmm. Or we would have had him before he went to the Giants, and maybe we would appreciate him more. Is Carlos Beltran a Hall of Famer?
Yes, I think so. And I think most people who read the book will probably agree, because, one of the Astros' strokes of genius was they realized that not only sometimes you have to go against the numbers, sometimes you have to believe in things that the numbers just can't even capture, right? And just because the numbers can't capture it doesn't mean it's not real, and doesn't mean it doesn't contribute to winning. This was kind of like a feeling that Jeff Luhnow had, that he had rebuilt his team by getting rid of all his veterans who were making a lot of money. That meant he didn't have any veterans. There was no central node in that clubhouse, no one to show even young players like Carlos Correa the best way of doing things. That's what Beltran did last year.
He was an inside-out guy.
Yeah.
Big in the clubhouse.
Completely. And as I write in the book, he didn't have a hit in the World Series, but he did a couple of things during that Dodgers series that really might have made the difference between winning and losing behind the scenes. I was surprised. When I went in to write this book, I did not appreciate just how enormous of an impact Carlos Beltran had on that team, even though, production-wise, he was clearly on the downswing.
I mean, you could make an argument the Yankees are neck and neck with him last year. Easily could have won that series.
Right.
Right?
And, I mean, we talk a lot about the core four with the Yankees. It's kind of like it's a bit of a cliche at this point, but there is something real to having that nucleus and building
no
around
question.
it.
Leadership is so underrated.
Yeah.
I argue that with Brian Cashman because he's a numbers guy. And, he figures when you win, that's when the culture and everything goes right. And I think he understands having a clubhouse or two guy. But I think leadership is, when you're grinding out all these games or such a difficult game, you need that voice. That's not necessarily the manager or the coach that you're looking to. What do you think about the state of baseball in general? I know Astroball talks about a little more of the future and kind of how it talks about winning, but you're around the game a lot.
Yeah.
What do you like and dislike most about the game?
I mean, I'm not thrilled about the kind of polarization, especially in the American League, right? And part of this is a legacy of the Astros. It's like you're either in or you're out, right? But you look at the AL, you've got, 4 teams who are really good, 3 teams who are almost super teams.
Just throw Cleveland in.
Then the
there,
Indians
maybe.
are the 4th.
Yeah.
But beyond that, you really have like 2 other teams, right? I mean, the Mariners and the A's. Like you can almost like that is one playoff spot up for grabs right now, and I think the playoffs will be great. I think we might be on track for like a legendary all-time.
Do you need
playoffs.
more playoff spots?
No, I don't think you need more, but there's just not that many teams in it right now. And almost at the start of the season, you looked around the league, there were like 8 teams who were clearly not intending to win this year, including 80% of the AL Central.
But it kind of reminds me of the NBA a little bit. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. There's the haves, and then there's a huge bucket of have-nots.
Right, that's true. Is
that a trend maybe in sports?
Well, and I guess the worrying long-term trend is, the story of the past 20 years or so, 15 years, was about all these ways that the smaller market, less wealthy teams were pursuing to compete with the rich teams, right? Like exploiting inefficiencies, the Moneyball model, essentially. Now the concern is, do all the rich teams have a grasp of all of these strategies as well as having more money? And are we just going into an era in which the rich teams will essentially win every year? And you look at the Final Four last year, it was the 4 biggest cities
you got the Dodgers,
in the country.
You got
the Yankees,
Yankees,
the Cubs, and the Astros.
Oh, right, and
the
Cubs,
4 biggest cities in the country were the 4 final teams in baseball. I think that's a concern. Like if the small market teams, again, because the big market teams have become as sophisticated as they are, really can't ultimately compete, I wonder if that's a problem for the game.
Yeah, I think it's a problem for the NBA, certainly. I mean, how many years are you going to sit around where over 20 of the 30 teams suck?
Yeah.
I mean, how long can you sit and watch the Knicks, the Nets, the Hornets, the Magic, the Detroit Pistons, Sacramento? I mean, I can go on and on. And I feel like with baseball, it just seems forever since Tampa. I got to sit there and even watch Tampa.
Well, they're actually amazing this year.
And they're playing better than ever expected. But it just doesn't seem exciting to have to go watch them.
I know what you're
or
saying.
Baltimore, or there's a whole bunch of teams.
For me, like a team like Tampa is kind of a fun intellectual exercise to see them being so creative. Having 2 starting pitchers on their staff, really using every way they can think of to win, to remain competitive, which they are. They're a 500 team in the AL East, to remain competitive while kind of rebuilding as well underneath.
Here's the thing, Ben. Do you think, look at since 2004. So we're looking at the last 15 years. I mean, the Red Sox have been the team. When you look at the 15-year period, they've been kind of like the new version of the Yankees in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the consistency of their winning, the way they've won. Even when they haven't won, they've been right in there. Well, probably the most playoff appearances.
Probably. There's the chicken and beer team. They seem to have a couple. Remember that one? the fried chicken and beer in the clubhouse. But yeah, I think you're right.
That 2004 team. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, the Red Sox have
broke the curse. I mean, think about what they did.
But I mean, that's a key that I write about in this book as well. Is at least as far as when Jeff Luhnow and his data man Sig Mejdal got to St. Louis. Like, it's very hard. one of the hardest things is to overhaul an already successful organization. And when they got to St. Louis, they were asked to kind of, by the owner, Bill DeWitt, to bring this new analytical way of doing things to the second most successful baseball team in history. And they got a lot of pushback. Like, it's one thing to try to change an organization that's in the dumps, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of winning going down there.
So, I mean, and I'm thinking about that related to this year's Red Sox as well. You know, Alex Cora comes in. Red Sox, as you say, have been the most successful organization really since in this millennium, and he really delivers them a new approach offensively. He said, look, the scouting report on you guys last year was easy when he was the Houston bench coach. You guys are not aggressive enough. Like, you look at first pitch swinging, you're getting behind in the count. Like, you take. That's not how the game is played anymore. You have to attack. He told Mookie Betts in January, like, you're going to lead off for us this season. The first pitch you see is going to be right down the middle, and you're going to swing at it, and you're going to drive it to the fence. And that's what Betts did. It was a deep flyout, but it set the tone that we're not taking first pitches anymore. And I think a lot of the Red Sox success has come from a combination of that philosophy and, of course, the impact that J.D. Martinez has brought. For a bargain, by the way. I mean, teams whiffed on him again, right?
I mean, we're so grateful that we signed him here. It wasn't like, and we're like, I got a good feeling about this guy.
Yeah.
I literally, but when I looked at the numbers, you're not sure, but I'm like, something I think we're going to try.
About Martinez?
Yeah.
I think
Of
teams,
course, I'm looking like a genius now.
outthought themselves this year. Like, yes, you have a more holistic view of players. As he will admit, he doesn't run well. He doesn't field that well, although I think he thinks he's better than a lot of people do. They view him as like a one-dimensional player, which means that you got to suppress his price, and the market for him wasn't huge. I do an annual ranking of the top 50 free agents, and he was easily the number one player on the market. I mean, look,
Really?
You have a guy who is, over the past 4 years, so that's a long track record, like one of the top 5 hitters in the game. In OPS, he's third, right? Overall, behind, I think, Mike Trout and Joey Votto. Number 3 is J.D. Martinez. Like, that's
Wow.
so you're really not going to shell out for a guy like that. I mean, I think already with potentially 4.5 years left to go on his contract, although he has a couple opt-outs, which he probably will take if teams realize what he can do for them.
Yeah.
Probably this is already one of like the best free agent signings of all time. It's rare that a free agent works out so perfectly, so quickly as J.D. Martinez
We're going to
has.
take some questions. If you have any for Ben Reiter, we're here at Astros, Yankees, baseball. Tell me about the Yankees situation. Do you follow the Yankees?
Yeah, sure.
What's your take on a lot of youth? People are getting a little nervous, but obviously a lot of talent. Is Judge everything that they say he is? What's your take on some of these guys? Andujar or even Gleyber Torres. Are these guys a little overrated or still yet to be determined?
No, I don't think they're overrated. I think, look, like last year, this team almost made the World Series in a season in which it wasn't even really trying to. Like they weren't going to be bad, but 2017 was certainly a rebuilding year, or a kind of like kick this thing into gear type of year for Brian Cashman.
So you were surprised last year.
Yeah, and then they came one game from the World Series when they weren't necessarily gunning for it, right?
You don't have that crazy play.
Yeah.
Maybe you're in the World Series.
That's right.
Right.
And you look at the ages of the players and, the talent level of the players and what they have behind them in the minors and, the financial assets they have to add to them during this upcoming like free agent frenzy we're about to experience, and the assets they have in the minor leagues that they, in my opinion, should eventually flip for like somebody like Jacob deGrom if the Mets will do it. There's no team better positioned going forward. Even the Astros, I don't think, as far as a combination of assets and resources. And look, I know they're going through a rough patch, but they could very easily win this year as well.
So you think they have enough right now, the way they are, to win?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't think they're not my favorite. Like the Astros are my favorite, as I said, but yes. I mean, especially, look, they don't have Judge right now. He's their best player, right? He really is. Like he's out. They're going through it a little bit. Maybe they're become a bit complacent because, they're not going to win the East at this point, right? Like that race is probably over.
So you've given up on that. You're not
9 games at this point.
We've seen those miracles happen before.
Well, I know, but
It would take a big reversal of.
What are the chances? I mean, it's like I wonder what the odds are. Like 5% odds.
See, I look at it more like this: the Yankees are playing obviously not the best teams, and the Red Sox probably have a little more of a rougher schedule. If you get that 9 games down to 5 come middle of September, you got 8 games with them. hey, the ball starts getting a little heavier. You're in playoff baseball mode.
All right, I'll give you like 8% then.
Right?
8% chance.
But you could feel me on that. Like, I mean, you're in baseball playoff mode.
Yeah, sure, it's possible.
If you win 4 or 5 more games than the Red Sox win, which is a good chance, the Red Sox have definitely a tougher schedule than the Yankees do. So there's a good chance that you can close that gap from 9 to 5 in 30 days, literally.
Yeah, 9's a lot, but
5.
There's a chance.
I'm figuring you get the 9. That you pick up 4 games. You have one bad
if
series.
that happens.
They have a good series. Because we're playing all sub 500 teams, and then all of a sudden now you go head to head, and maybe it's a little different. Maybe.
I'm not saying it's impossible,
right?
But
Well,
I'm
not the way
not saying
things are looking now.
I'm not saying that I don't think even the Yankees
these guys
think
are
this is
superheroes.
like this
I mean,
is probable.
I'm surprised these guys. I'm stuff flying around and have wings and. Drew's got a question.
We got a question from Christopher. Can this book be looked at as a parallel to Moneyball?
I think it certainly can be looked at as a parallel to Moneyball, which for my money is probably the most influential sports book ever written. Not just for readers, but because it really changed the way a lot of baseball teams operated. A lot of the people in my book would not have gotten their jobs if Moneyball did not exist, because it would not have opened owners' minds to the idea that you can bring in outsiders, like Jeff Luhnow came from tech companies and Sig Mejdal came from NASA.
Here's my problem with Moneyball, though.
Let's hear it.
It did change the way we looked at everything, but they didn't win.
Right.
They didn't really win, and I mean, that's the knock on that is like, it's great you put that system in to be competitive, but isn't the ultimate goal at some point to hit the pinnacle and grab the brass ring?
They didn't win, and obviously the book doesn't necessarily focus on Mulder and Zito and Hudson as well as a main driver of their success, but it's still the best book ever written about baseball for me because of the concepts and ideas that it really brought to the masses that have shaped the game. However, I would deem my book as like a successor to Moneyball, like next level Moneyball, on the continuum of Moneyball, but kind of like a Moneyball 2.0 thing. Like, everybody understands Moneyball now. All that stuff's been baked into the game. What the Astros did is at the forefront of like the next evolution as far as approaching building a baseball team and building a winner, and one that actually worked from the Astros.
They widened the approach. Also, you went with the personal, the gut, the instinct, the experience, and combined it with the analytics, which is probably a fair approach. I think that's almost common sense. But you could see people getting all the way into the analytics where they don't want to make a decision unless the numbers support it.
Right. It seems like common sense now, but think of the movie Moneyball, right? I mean, you have Brad Pitt sitting on one side of the table with all his numbers, and the other side you have these kind of like dumpy, crusty looking scouts talking about, oh, well, this guy's girlfriend looks like this, so that means he's this sort of player. Like, clearly we're intended to side with Brad Pitt and the numbers, but the Astros' brilliance wasn't really those scouts. Like, if we can figure out what's the good stuff of their observations, that stuff is still incredibly valuable, and in fact can provide us an edge that teams who are just relying on numbers don't have.
Got another one from Billy here. Ben, do you think the Astros should go after Andrew McCutchen?
I don't think so. I don't.
You like the team the way it is?
More or less. Like, I understand the question because they do need an outfielder, especially with Springer on the DL. Kyle Tucker came up, didn't do particularly well. Now they have Derek Fisher again. Look, actually, I wouldn't say I don't think so. It all depends on what the price is. That's what I've learned from the Astros, right? Like, they will do all sorts of things, but they approach every single decision from like an economic standpoint, right? So they'll never say they won't do anything. The question is not will we do it or won't we do it. The question is how much does it cost and how much will we have to sacrifice. And they have systems to assign very firm values to all of those possibilities to help them guide their decisions.
By the way, one quick thing. Is there one thing you change in the game right now? Is there one rule or one thing you think that just absolutely needs to be changed?
I mean, we can get into balls and strikes, right? I don't know what your view is of umpires.
Lately, it just seems rough on both sides of it.
It is. I mean, look, I respect umpires, et cetera, But like we do have technologies in place
So
to
you're
get
ready
these calls.
You're ready to computerize it.
Kind of. I mean,
right.
they do it in tennis, right? At least they can do it some sort of challenge system, like a quick challenge system, like they have in tennis. Look, the fact is,
So you literally want
robo umps.
wow. Or do you want?
I think we're going there.
You want a batter to be able to say, "I want to challenge that strike call."
That's a possibility. It could be fun. It's actually like a fun feature. Like if you go to the U.S. Open or something, right? And the player challenges it and they show it on the board. And that could be, I mean, it's possible. It might interrupt the game a little too much in baseball.
Brett Gardner will be using all his challenges.
But look, the fact is, like a missed ball or strike call here or there can like wildly swing
Change
the
the
outcome
at-bat.
of a game.
Yeah, it really
So
can.
if we have the ability to pretty easily and seamlessly get those things right, I think we're probably trending in the direction of doing that.
Wow. Okay. Anything else, Drew?
So one more question. People have attributed baseball's success as of recently with this offensive explosion. What do you think about the possibility of banning the shift? I know some guys have talked about that in the past and how that could affect the game.
And of course, the Astros were one of the early pioneers as far as adopting the shift back in like 2012, 2013. And this is one of those things when Jeff Luhnow and his guys came in and told the players what they were going to do. They were like very against it. Dallas Keuchel in particular like hated it at first, but then he eventually realized that especially for a contact pitcher like him, in the long run, it was going to help. He only remembered the ball that like bounced right to where the shortstop was supposed to be and went through for a single. But when he looked at it in the long run, he realized it was saving him runs. No, I don't think we should ban the shift. Like I don't have like a firm stance on this. Like I understand it's not without precedent. The NBA has legal defense and all sorts of defensive alignments that you can't use.
I don't think the game was set up for it to be, for people to be able to shift.
Right.
I am a fan if you want to lose one of your outfielders, though.
Yeah.
That'd
You
be
mean you
fine.
bring him in?
Yeah, if you want to bring a fifth out, you want to bring one of your outfielders and play with two outfielders and close the gap. But I hate the shift. But I can't understand why players just can't lay down a bunt.
Well, that's the thing.
I mean, what is wrong? You're a professional player, and the
Look,
whole thing's open. You can't just take a single?
Because like they're paid to hit
selfishness.
home runs. They're incentivized to hit home runs. Like they're
You
not
say selfish.
Big Poppy or whoever
I
is
just
not
want
going
to
to
say,
bunt.
I'm
like
the
10 times a
originator
row.
of the bringing the relief pitchers in, which Tampa Bay did recently. I'm a fan of bring the relief pitchers to start the game, bring my starter in the fourth inning. So come the 7th, 8th, and 9th, I've got my ace pitching. When most people turn on the game and are watching the game, which is the 7th, 8th, and 9th, I'm watching the best players, the best pitchers.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm watching some relief pitcher that I barely even can pronounce his name or know. I'd rather start with a couple of relief pitchers. Now, I'll keep my closure for the end in case I need them.
Yeah.
But let me get a couple of relief pitchers to start the game.
Well, yeah, that's right.
You're a fan of that? But see, Tampa Bay did that this year a few times.
Tampa Bay's doing it. I don't think they're doing it for like the entertainment value of viewers, although I guess that's a secondary result of it. They're doing it to kind of get through the first batters of the game so that their best hitters in the heart of the lineup don't get like early multiple looks at the starters in part. But as for the shift, look, I think the game's cyclical. I do think we're seeing now players starting to bunt a little more, hitting the other way. Like at some point, the offenses will adjust and the defenses will adjust again. I don't know. If you ban it, you have to do it like very, very carefully because it seems like always when we make these big rule changes, they have all sorts of unintended consequences.
You're right.
Create a new host of problems.
Ready for the National League to add the DH or no?
Yeah, I think they probably just should. Pitchers don't even work on hitting anymore. It's just kind of like, what's the point? Although I do like National League strategy. Double shifts and all that
I do too,
stuff.
but I just don't like the injury factor. And it seems like when you get into the interleague play, it's a little bit unfair.
I don't even know. Like, it used to be kind of fun to track, like, who are the good hitting pitchers.
Yeah.
Like Micah Owings. Like
It moves the game on quicker, though.
CC was always a good hitting pitcher. I guess Syndergaard has some power. But, like, this year, I don't even know. Are there any good hitting pitchers?
But it's a rally stopper.
Yeah.
It makes the game move a little quicker.
I think
which is always a concern.
I think we're probably heading in that direction. Although there's no sport that's more tradition bound, of course, than baseball, which is part of the reason why we like it, I think.
Hey, if you're a baseball fan, Astroball, I'm sure you can pick this up on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, great gift. And, it's got a nice little feel to it, especially now if you want some insight of what's going to happen in September and what the Astros are made of, which is where they're going to be difficult. We're going to give away, by the way, don't forget. Drew, how are we giving this book away? He's going to autograph this book.
Just got to share this post and comment below, and we'll pick at random a winner to win a signed copy of the book.
And don't forget to follow Ben on his Sports Illustrated. It's sportsillustrated.com.
I'm on SI.com. I'm on Twitter at Ben Reiter, BenReiter. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook.
And check out this article. You just wrote this today, right? For JD Martinez?
It's in this week's magazine. It's online today. It's about how JD Martinez became a Red Sox superstar and the Astros' greatest mistake, which he was. Although I do get into, a lot of people are saying like, oh, how is it such a big mistake? They won the World Series anyway. Well, if they would read the article, they would find out that the Astros did not kind of try to write this off as a mistake or explain it away. They actually learned from the processes that led them to make this mistake to improve, which is another sign of a healthy, successful organization.
Smart on the Red Sox part. By the way, I'm a big Sports Illustrated fan. Collected them. That was, I had always a little problem reading as a kid, and there was nothing better than Sports Illustrated photos. But you guys always seem like a step ahead of it on the pulse, as you were with this one. Good luck with this book. Love that you went on. I just love that you went on a limb. You went out there a little bit with the Astro thing, and good for you. I mean, that's what it's about. But you did the work.
It was
good for you.
It was ugly at first, man. It was like I should show you some of my tweets that I got after that cover came out. Like
you gotta frame those up, man.
Well, I try not to rub it in. I try to be like a nice, humble guy, but some of the worst I do quote in this book as well.
That's funny. I mean, but it's all fun.
I couldn't resist.
It's all fun, and something we need more of those stories in sports. Anyway, we're coming back. We have a great Project X tomorrow. Jester, you want to just fill them in so people know?
Yeah, we've got Scott McGregor coming on tomorrow's show somewhere around the early afternoon, and stay tuned for that.
All right, everybody. Have a great day. Pick up this book, Amazon.com. You'll love it if you're a baseball fan.